We are going to examine the friendship between the Elves and the first humans in Middle-earth through the lens of Finrod Felagund, who faces Sauron in a battle of sorcery to help them. He is an elf and king of the elven fortress of Nargothrond. When the two trees that lit the skies were destroyed by the first Dark Lord Morgoth, Feanor, an elf, rebelled against the gods of Middle-earth, the Valar. He made the silmarils, jewels, and Morgoth took them for his crown. Feanor and his sons swore an oath to get them back, and would destroy any who stood in their way. To this end, and to pursue the silmarils, Feanor demanded the elves give him ships to sail when he reached Alqualond. They refused, and so Feanor ordered his Noldor elves to slay them. This led to the first kinslaying between the elves in Middle-earth. Finrod opposed Feanor, however. He relented when he saw his people also wanted to go, and also that he did not want his people to fall under Feanor, who I think Finrod would question as a leader after his oath and the kinslaying of fellow elves. Finrod also had to leave behind in a man his love, Amory, who could not go with him, and he might never see her again, a large burden and sacrifice in a eternal life. So he gives up what he wants to keep his people safe and under his rule. Finrod settled and built the tower of Minas Tirith. 300 years passed, and Finrod explored, and in the land of Thargelion he came across men for the first time. Finrod meets the followers of Beor the Old. Finrod sings, and it is of the making of the world of Arda. The humans see visions, and his speech is interpreted into each mind. They thought that he was one of the Valar, gods of Middle-earth. It seems likely they had never before seen elves, and Finrod found he could read men's minds the same way he could their speech, so he could easily understand them. Finrod also saw there was a darkness upon the hearts of men, as there was with the elves, with the curse of the silmarils. Perhaps he sees a kinship there, and that they also both had the hand of Morgoth in them. Finrod gathered the men under Beor and moved them onto their own land, ensuring agreements so they would be safe from the other elves, who might not share his love of mankind. Finrod departed, but continued to return and visit man, of which he was most fond. Beor in the end left with Finrod and became his vassal. Finrod also had a close relationship with Andrith, also of the house of Beor. They talked about elves and men during the elven siege of Morgoth's fortress. At length, they touched on many topics, such as the roles of men and elves, the gift of man, and the long life of elves. Men are second born to the elves, as they were created second by Eru, the god of Middle-earth. Morgoth seduced mankind, and all joined him, but over time some turned away, and humans have the gift of men, mortality. When men die, they can rest for their troubles, whereas the elves are bound to Arda, earth, and their spirits remain till its unmaking or till they are reborn. Mankind, for good or evil, also has free will. The elves' will is bound in the creation of the Song of Eru, the head of the pantheon in Middle-earth. Later, Beor the Old passes away, and Finrod sees the passage of his friend's life and wonders about human fate when they die. Perhaps this plays back to his conversations with Androth and gives him some insight into the short life of men, since he has lost a friend and a human. Finrod fights in Dagor Bragollach, another in a series of battles between the Elves and Melkor. Finrod fought in the Fen of Serech, a marshland. There he became surrounded by orcs, so that even his life was in danger. And Barahir, a human of the House of Beor, saved him, continuing the friendship the elf has with Beor's generational descendants, and repaying the bond of the long-held friendship. In gratitude, Finrod swore an oath of friendship to Barahir and all his kin, and passed on to Barahir his ring. 10 years would pass, and it was then Barahir's son, Beren, came to Nargothrond, needing help. Beren, for the love of the elven woman, Luthien, had been given the impossible task of taking back a silmaril, a gem crafted by Feanor, to win her hand. The problem was, the gem was held by the Dark Lord Morgoth. Beren presented the ring of Barahir as evidence of who he was, and to recall the oath the king had made. Perhaps Finrod felt some of the loss for his own partner in this moment with Beren, some sympathy for his situation. Finrod asked his people for aid in this quest, but the sons of Feanor, Celagorm and Curufin, bound by their oath, as Finrod is bound by his, used threats linked to that oath, and what might befall the people of Finrod's kingdom if they should help. So few came forward to help their king. Such was the effect of the sons of Feanor's words that only 10 warriors agreed to go with Finrod. But this did not stop him, even with such poor odds. They found a company of orcs and killed them, and with the magic of Finrod, changed their forms into the likenesses of orcs. However, Sauron was on to them. He captured all but the Elven king. And so the contest fell to Finrod and Sauron to duel with their magic. Sauron's magic had the notes of treachery, but this was fought by the resisting notes of Finrod and of the hope of freeing those that had been taken. The power moved back and forth as ever more strong the chanting swelled. Finrod brought all his might with his elven magic to bear, and with this came images of birds singing in Nargothrond, the sea sighing against the coast, and it entered the gloom, but that gloom gathered, and darkness came in answer, and images from Sauron of blood being spilled in Valinor, perhaps the kinslaying, wolves howling and ravens fleeing, and the captives that Finrod had come with being held and imprisoned. Thunder rumbles, the fires burn, and Finrod fell before the throne. Sauron stripped them of their orc disguises, but their faces were not known to him, and so he fed them one by one to the werewolves, but no one spoke, and it ended with only Beren and Felagund left. So it was that when the werewolf came to slay Beren, Finrod, held by his oath, put forth all the power that remained to him. He broke his chains and wrestled the wolf and slew it with hands and teeth, but was in turn wounded mortally, but had redeemed his oath to the line of Beor the Old. With his aid, and with the arrival of Beren's love, Luthien, they were able to take a silmaril from the crown of Morgoth, and so Beren gained the approval of Luthien's father, and they were allowed to marry. Minas Tirith, the tower Finrod had built, was cleansed, and Finrod died in it, in Tol in Garhoth. It was the tower he himself had built when his people had settled, which had been later taken by Sauron. But, as he had discussed with Andreth, death of the body was not the end for the elves, and with his own death, perhaps he understood the passing of the men he had been friends with a little better. For his noble actions, he was reincarnated by the Valar, and was then allowed to return to life in Amon, where he had left long ago, and he now dwells there with his lady love Amari as reward. What do you think to Tolkien's tale of the friendship between men and elves? What do you think of the sacrifice of Finrod? Do you have any immortal friends? Please comment down below.